Welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Supernova Live. I'm your host, Lorraine, and author of Unleash Your Supernova. I'm also the mother of four, the founder of Raine magazine, Pink Kangaru, the Raine School of Fashion, and Nova Lorraine International. I'm here with one of my favorite people in the world, my co-host, Ryon Anderson, founder of Ryon Esquire, a business peak performance coaching and consulting company. He'll be joining me as my partner in crime as we help you unleash your supernova. If you end up liking Ryon as much as I do, you can get more by checking out RyonEsquire.com. That's Ryon with an O, R-Y-O-N, Esquire.com. Join the fun live every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern as we help you increase creativity, beat burnout, and happily survive the roller coaster of creative entrepreneurship. This is the companion show to the book, Unleash Your Supernova, your go-to guide for immediately usable tips on mindset, creativity hacks, decreasing stress, and unlocking your limitless potential. If you miss us on Fridays on BBS Radio, no problem. Make sure you download and subscribe to the Unleash Your Supernova podcast. Hey, Ryon.
Hey, Nova. How's it going?
Good. It's good. You know, it's been a crazy week. I don't know. I started off the week with very little phone calls. Like, this was my catch-up week. And because last week was a marathon, like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and I was like, no, this week I need to just protect my time, catch up with my emails, cross off some of my tasks on my to-do list. Yeah, that's how the week started. You know what? It didn't really end like that, though. It was back-to-back phone calls. And,
best of intentions, right? Yeah.
And then I think it was last night. Yeah. Last night hosted a Clubhouse room, and it was quite funny because a group of us decided, or at least one other person actually, invited a group of us to do a room on podcasting and how to launch and grow, monetize your podcast. And I was like, sure, let's do it. So I was asked to set up the room, and so I started the room. I was the only one in the room. And this is the first time I've done quite a few co-moderating, moderating, hosting rooms. And this is the first time that I was in there by myself. And I was like, okay, this is slightly awkward. I was like, no problem. I will just start my emails, go through my emails. And then I'm still waiting for my co-moderators, right? And someone pops in the room, and I was like, ooh, this is just as awkward as being in a room by yourself and someone in person coming into a room. So anyway, I introduced myself, told them what the room was about, started the conversation, and it actually worked out really well because this individual is starting a podcast on losing weight. And he actually lost 400 pounds, regained it all, and was back on the journey of losing it again. And so anyway, it was a very intimate conversation, so I was glad it was just he and I when we first started the conversation, and then one by one the room started filling up, and here I am still the Lone Ranger in the room, and I was like, this is a different experience. And eventually my co-moderators joined the room, and it was a ton of fun. We had a huge flood of individuals that were not only looking for answers for launching their shows or growing their shows, but just sharing such amazing information. So it was just a really great experience. I think my best experience so far in Clubhouse.
That's super cool. I haven't done a whole lot on Clubhouse. What's your thoughts with it, really?
Well, it's been about a month now since I've been on it. And whenever I come across a new platform, I'm a big nerd. I'll do a bunch of research. I will go to with Clubhouse, they have welcome rooms. So I actually had a personal tour through the Clubhouse when I first joined from a good friend. And thank you, Ope. Shout out to Ope. And then I did sit in on a couple of welcome rooms so I can get more familiar with the app. And then, so it's been about a month or so. And I've had mixed feelings because I'm very strategic and I don't have a lot of time. And if any of you have been on Clubhouse, you know that it can be a huge time sucker. And actually, before I joined the app, I was told, be careful, it could be super addictive. And I'm like, whatever. Like, but then when I got on it, I was like, oh my gosh, I could completely see how people spend, I'm not kidding you, Ryan, they will spend 6, 8, 10, 12 hours on Clubhouse. And for an entrepreneur that does not have that luxury of time, I was just curious, how could this be really effective for those that can leverage it in one way or another? So my overall opinion, still evaluating. I do have some ideas just from some strategies that I've either tested or I've been researching. I do think it can be extremely effective for certain individuals and industries, and I can absolutely see it growing on the entertaining side as well. I mean, there are rooms that you can literally listen to someone reading a book for hours.
Wow.
Or you can come in and argue about a TV show, with others that are fans of that show. So I can completely see it growing in that direction as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because, you and I were on, the only time I've been on Clubhouse really was you and I were on a panel together. And, it really made me kind of start thinking about what, like the platform and what's different about the platform. And I have a lot of things that I feel about it. And one thing I really like about it is, unlike Facebook, unlike Instagram, unlike Twitter, you really can't, on all those platforms, you can hide behind a photograph, maybe a fake name, and really do a lot of things anonymously, or have someone else do it for you, right? Automate it. You really can't disguise your voice, right? So in many ways, you're on that platform, it's your voice. There's no other way that you can have someone do the work for you. So I think it's a really cool way for to get in contact with people who are extremely influential, because it's absolutely them in that room, right? That to me is super, super powerful. I also like it from the standpoint of, since you can't hide your voice, you're going to be a little more accountable for your opinions, right? Unlike some of the other platforms where you can, hide behind, like I said, hide behind a fake name, hide behind a picture, no one knows, and you can say outrageous things, and no one's really going to know it's you. Anonymity just allows for so much drama, chaos, whatever, right? And so that's one thing I really like about it too. And then when I was on it, it's funny. You would have thought I would have thought about this before, but it really made me realize, especially as someone who couldn't see, the really cool thing about Clubhouse is there's just something more intimate about an actual conversation with somebody, right? Versus a message or a picture or whatever. And, to me, it's just if you can just have a conversation with somebody with different background, different religion, different ethnicity, whatever, because of that level of intimacy, it just seems like it allows you to connect on a human level, right? And that to me is super powerful, because as most of you know, when you're in the womb, your mother's voice is one of the first things you hear besides a heartbeat, right? So the human voice resonates with us on a super deep, emotional, almost primitive level, right? And I see a lot of power with that. And then,
let's hold that thought right there.
Okay.
I just want to hold that thought right there, because, and I know we started our banter about my experience this week, and we ended up in Clubhouse, but I do want to spend time sort of exploring what is the hype around this new app. And, in the book, Unleash Your Supernova, I touch on knowing your resources, right? One of the ways that you can bring out your inner brilliance, tap into those hidden gifts or talents, is to really assess your resources. And one of those things are, what are the tools in your toolbox? And they can be your gifts, your personal gifts, discovered or undiscovered, or it can be tools like technology, such as a new app like Clubhouse. So I do want us to, I know we were planning on talking about something else today, but I do think it's super important for our listeners that are really trying to level up, or really trying to be the greatest version of themselves, to understand this new tool. Because one of the things that I've seen, as it relates to success, a lot of times, being known, growing quickly, is being at the right place at the right time, jumping on the right platform at the right time.
Yep.
And that could have been radio at one point, right? Or it could have been YouTube at one point. And so this platform is barely, not even a year old. I mean, it launched March of 2020. It's not even a year old. So still, even though it has millions of users, it's still very young. So let's dive into that. You mentioned some really good points about the power of the human voice, the intimacy component of the app, how what your experience has been so far. So let's explore this as it relates to creatives, as it relates to entrepreneurs that are looking for a way or looking for a new tool to add to their toolkit. Sound good?
Yeah. And there's so many different philosophies on this. Like, Gary Vee is one of those, you should be on every platform that exists in the world. And that's super easy to do when you have this huge team behind you, right? And you have an amazing team behind you, too. But no, if you're a solopreneur, a smaller company, that's extremely hard to do, right? And, as far as, Clubhouse goes, and this is kind of my thing about all platforms is, pick the medium that you are best in, right? If you're a person who's comfortable speaking in front of a group, in front of strangers, expressing yourself verbally, Clubhouse is an amazing platform for you. If you're better written, right, you're just not as comfortable expressing your opinions verbally, maybe Facebook, maybe Instagram, maybe Twitter, or LinkedIn. If you're happen to be a really attractive person, or you're super great with taking pictures, whether it's pictures of you, pictures of senior, Instagram is it's all about finding a platform that works best for you, your talents, your skills, and then maximizing that and essentially doubling down on it, because the reality is once things hit scale, people only follow people that either they know, they like, they trust, they respect, or are producing amazing quality. And it's really hard to produce amazing quality in a medium that you're not comfortable with, right? And that's kind of how I determine where I spend my time on these platforms.
Well, let's take a step back for those who are hearing about Clubhouse for the first time. So this is to your newbies out there listening. And so Clubhouse is a new social media platform. It launched in March of 2020. And currently, it's worth $1 billion. So, wrap your head around that.
Wow.
What's unique about this social platform is based around audio. So for those that have fallen in love with radio or podcasts or TED Talks, and those who've used the House Party app, it's like a mashup of all of those things. And when you're in the app, you can actually select rooms based on the topic of conversation. So it can be anything from hearing an interview with a celebrity to figuring out how to become the next millionaire to singles looking for advice on relationships. I mean, the conversations go all over the place. And you can pop in and out of rooms at will. And some of these rooms may last an hour. Some may last 4, 5, 6 hours. And, you could decide to stay on for as long as you want or as little as you want. Now, this is the hook with this platform that's very unique from others. It is invitation only, and it's only available on iPhones. And so it launched with about 1,500 users. It's exploded in the last few months with the help of, everyone really seeking out ways to, connect more. And being able to see a photo and hear a live voice is something that really resonated with individuals. So for those of you that are just now hearing about Clubhouse for the first time, that's a little crash course on Clubhouse. So if you were in early, and this is my definition of early, before the new year, you would be one of the influencers potentially if you use the app frequently. And what I've seen in Clubhouse, influencers, I would say, are in the thousands as opposed to the millions like on Instagram. And what's also unique about this app is you cannot message someone or share photos or videos or text messages to whoever's on the app. You would have to communicate with them off of this app through Twitter or Instagram. And so it's truly just your profile and either you listening or you chatting. So those are some other unique features that's made it sort of this word of mouth. Like, it's the new craze. And I think it's really important, again, for our entrepreneurs out there or our creatives out there looking for tools to leverage in their growth, maybe personal or business, to evaluate, while it's still a fairly young platform, is this worth your time? So I did want to just back up there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because like you mentioned, I mean, it's so easy to get stuck. I don't know how people can spend 8 hours a day on it. I have too much stuff to do to dedicate that much time. And so, if that's something that you easily do, you're really going to have to, like, be good about setting yourself guidelines, essentially. Like, I'm only going to be on it for 1 hour a day. I mean, because otherwise, it is super easy to get involved in conversations. So far, my experience has been the conversations have been really good and productive, and I really hope it stays that way, because if it does, then it becomes a super powerful platform, as opposed to devolving into something else. But right now, I have a lot of high hopes for it, because I'm really ready for another platform besides the big three that gives me something different and gives me something a little more positive and gives me something that connects me on a more intimate human level than just a picture and a few words and all that kind of good stuff. So I have high hopes for it.
So I remember we were having a conversation prior to the show about your thoughts of the future of the app, sort of where it is now, who are the users, why it's successful, and where it's going to go. Do you want to touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, what I've seen now, and you've been in it more, so you started seeing different things. Most of it that I have seen in my circles, that the groups I've done have been like influencers, coaches, consultants, business people that are there for educational stuff, and it's growing fast, and you and I were talking earlier that Facebook is getting ready to come out with a competitor, right? This is the conversation you're talking about, correct? And Twitter was coming out with a competitor. Yeah, so, from a business standpoint, the problem with technology like this is the idea is easily stolen. And, Facebook and Twitter already have built-in massive platforms. So, once they create a copycat, essentially, it's really going to be easy for them to scale, whereas Clubhouse is trying to keep it smaller, more intimate, with the invitation only and all that kind of stuff. So really, Clubhouse probably needs to do one of two things. They need to either IPO, get their money and cash out and do that now. Maybe Twitter or someone like that buys them and integrates them into their app. Or, they double down on really monitoring who is a member and who speaks, and make sure that they become a platform that is known for quality members, known for quality content, and productive conversations, versus what unfortunately often happens with Facebook and Instagram, or not Instagram, but Twitter, which it devolves into a yelling match, and everybody's like, listen to my opinion, but I'm not going to listen to yours, right? And
right.
So that unfortunately is probably what's going to happen. Unfortunately, Clubhouse is probably going to it's either going to IPO and have its money that way, or it's going to be acquired, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as I just hope it stays. I hope it stays true to its original, intent, as far as like users, and making sure the conversation is productive and users are vetted, because when the motivation becomes growth, you can't have that. You can't have like huge astronomical growth and have quality and really vet all your members. It's just not going to work that way, right? And so,
I guess it depends on how they're going to grow it. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I guess it depends on how they decide to grow it. What resources are they going to invest from an infrastructure standpoint? Because I do think from my experience, what makes Clubhouse special is that people are looking for a space to be vulnerable and not attacked, to learn on their own time, to meet new people. Yesterday I was in the room, and there were individuals from Africa, Australia, all around, of course, the U.S., and it was amazing. It was amazing to not only, everyone in the room had a question or interest or some wisdom they wanted to share about podcasting.
Yep.
And, as you know, Pink Kangaroo Network is something that we're growing right now. And so it was, for me, the ability to learn from other really great podcasters and to see them openly share all these nuggets of wisdom with strangers. But you didn't feel like a stranger in the room, though. You really, truly felt like you were in this intimate space, and everyone was patting you on the back. Everyone was cheering. I remember one young lady came up to what they call the stage, and where you have the ability to speak. And so the moderator or host of the room can invite you to speak and unmute your mic. And she really, really doing well on TikTok, has over 70,000 followers on TikTok. And she's recorded several episodes for a podcast and has not released them because she's nervous or she doesn't want, her friends or family to, make fun of her or whatever the situation was. And there were several people who came up on stage just to encourage her. Like, they had no intention of speaking, but when they heard her comment, they said, I have to say something. And they literally just directed their advice to her and giving her permission to share her voice with the world, giving her that encouragement and empowering her. And that was an amazing experience. I mean, I cannot say that I've been on an app that does that within a group setting. You can get the pat on the back through Instagram, of course, and there's a new platform called TFU, which is really interesting and unique. But this sort of live engagement and group support, acknowledgement, I thought that was very powerful. And
I think it goes back to the intimacy of the voice. If you hear someone talking, you're going to hear their passion, you're going to hear their excitement, or you're going to hear their fears and anxiety. It comes across in their voice, and that resonates on a deep, emotional, human level, right? I mean, the reality is the written language is the most limiting language we have, because all you get is the words, and it's really hard to get, intent. It's really hard to get emotion, passion, right? Whatever. And so I think as a result, it's much easier to be empathetic when you hear someone go through or reveal their struggles, right? Versus if you see them reveal their struggles in a written form, and it's so easy to be like, suck it up, buttercup, right? I mean, it's just so much easier to do that when you're not getting that. I have a friend that would love to say that. When you're not getting that emotional connection. That, I agree, is the power of Clubhouse, and I hope it always stays that way. I'm so leery of how platforms have evolved that I'm withholding my exuberance about what it's going to be like 6, 12, 18 months from now. But if I hear you. This level, I'm super excited about it, right?
So with that, who would you recommend? Who do you think right now, as an entrepreneur or creative, would get the most value from Clubhouse, and how?
So, when I was first looking at it, I was really looking at it from a business perspective, a service provider perspective, basically, someone who's up there who they're on a panel, they're discussing, and they're showing their brilliance to the conversation, right? They're showing what they know about the topic, or sharing creative solutions, or maybe presenting whatever their product is, right? I really thought that's where Clubhouse was really going to go for its wheelhouse, and that was going to be its user base. And I was talking to you at one point in time. I was going through my friends list on Clubhouse, going, who would really want to be on this? And I was only looking at it from a business perspective. And then when you were talking about all the different groups that were doing it, and it was very much a social perspective, it really changed my view as far as the potential of Clubhouse, because there's some really creative ideas that are kind of going on Clubhouse. So if I guess the answer to that question is, anybody can use it, but the people that can really benefit from it from a business perspective, which is kind of what we're talking about, are people who express themselves well verbally, who don't mind being in front of a group, who don't mind answering questions, and really can add a tremendous amount of value to whatever group they are speaking in front of. Like, you do a lot with your podcast. You do a lot of podcast groups from what you discussed. I've done entrepreneurial groups, or I've done coaching groups, like mindset. I did mindset, so that's my wheelhouse, right? And so I can see a tremendous amount of value there as far as like an exposure standpoint, because again, once people hear your compassion, hear your voice, they're going to be much more likely to reach out and want to work with you, right? It's a really great way of distinguishing yourself from the masses that way. It's almost like the best version of networking and being an authority, because you can get on that stage and you can share your brilliance, and then people like ask you questions, or they hit you up later on Twitter or Instagram. Like, I think it's really great that way. I think it's also great for newbies, because they can get in these groups with these experts and learn how to do whatever they're interested in doing, right? So like, you do a lot of podcast stuff. That's a great way for someone who's looking to start their own podcast to get a crash course, basically from a bunch of experts, not pay for this expensive course, and really save themselves a tremendous amount of time and headache by avoiding mistakes that the experts are telling them that they went through, right? So I think they're great for those, for like, as far as our audience is concerned. I think it's really great for that kind of informational sharing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think those are really good points. And it's interesting how you mentioned the qualities of that individual, like doing that self-evaluation and saying, okay, do I feel comfortable talking in front of a crowd, or do I feel comfortable being vulnerable in front of a crowd? Maybe you're not an expert speaker, but you are comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone and sharing, the fact that you don't know something about the topic and you want to learn, and people get to know you and your story, and then they rally around you in that sense. So there's different ways where you can increase your visibility and support, on Clubhouse, even if you're not a speaker. So, but I thought that was an interesting point, is if you feel confident within this audio space, you can do very well. Another thing I was thinking of was this is sound-based. It's a voice-based platform, and audio, similar to podcasting and radio. And I think anything music-oriented, anything that let's think about our audiobooks, the storytelling. There are live DJs on the Clubhouse where you just go into the room and you're just jamming out, listening to music. There was actually a room where someone said that they were playing a book. Literally, you go in and you hear the audio version of this book, and people are falling asleep to this, the book. And so I think anything like in the music space and or is voice first can do very well in terms of an idea. Another thing that I've noted was that if you are a coach or a consultant and you are an expert in a particular industry or genre, this is a great way to share that expertise and let people know that you have more that you can offer them. And so I've seen a lot of coaching rooms and consulting rooms with hundreds, if not thousands of people. And again, within the Clubhouse world, getting into the thousands is massive in terms of a room. And so hundreds is a big room. And then there are individuals that are now opting out of the bigger rooms because they want that more intimate vibe and they want a chance to be heard. And so they are intentionally looking for rooms that are under 50 people. So there are strategies in going in and out of these rooms and selecting the rooms based on your intention. Me personally, what I find interesting is the one-on-one connections and relationships that you can develop offline. So you connect with someone in the room, you really like their story, you're vibing in terms of a conversation, and then you say, hey, let's take this off Clubhouse, let's continue to connect. And it's a warm, it's definitely an easier conversation because when you pick it up offline, via email or phone or Zoom, because you've met in a more intimate way in one of those rooms. So I think it's an amazing way of looking for direct one-on-one contacts, relationships. Maybe you're looking for guests for your show. Maybe you're looking for a mentor. Maybe you're looking for a new product or, to support or invest in. So I think those one-on-one connections are really powerful. And certain businesses like consulting and coaching or if you're a singer or a DJ, I think you could play really well, do very well in Clubhouse as well.
You know, you said something that I think is a really important point. You said early on, vulnerability. I think something about the voice encourages you to be more vulnerable and encourages you to really, share your story. And as a result, people do make that deeper level of connection. And the reality is we all want to work with people we like, know, and trust. And it's a really great way, by being vulnerable, of allowing, not trying to persuade, but allowing people to like, know, and trust you based on the information you share, based on the story you share, based on your content, right? And I think that's huge because it doesn't feel salesy, it doesn't feel forced, it's natural, it's organic, and it just makes it so much easier to, like you said, move from the platform to a further conversation of, do we want to work together on whatever service you offer, whatever platform you're trying to, whatever the situation may be, right? So I think that was a really, profound point that you made about the intimacy and then the vulnerability part of Clubhouse.
Thank you. Yeah, Ryan, I loved how you mentioned vulnerability. It ties into the last show we just did, and how if you have an idea, and you have something you want to accomplish, share it with people, and you'd be surprised who wants to help you. And I think Clubhouse is a great way to do that. So for those of you who missed last week's show, definitely check it out. It will be released as a podcast. So go to your favorite podcast players and download, subscribe, Unleash Your Supernova. This is a great time for us to break to our sponsorship mention, and then we'll bring on our guest. And so our sponsor is Pink Kangaroo Network, a community of wild thinkers. If you are a host of a show and you're looking for a home for your podcast, definitely check out pinkkangaroo.com, and that's Pink Kangaroo with a U. We are here to help support, launch, grow your show. And if you are looking to get support on that journey and connect with like-minded listeners, then Pink Kangaroo is for you. For those out of the box, or as an Aussie friend says, for those out of the square thinkers and listeners, Pink Kangaroo is your home. Definitely check out pinkkangaroo.com. There are shows that will entertain, educate, or inspire you. And again, thank you to our sponsor, Pink Kangaroo, the podcast network for wild thinkers. So I am excited to bring on our guest, Barbara Donato. She is an avid Clubhouse user, so would love to pick her brain on her thoughts and what strategies she would recommend to creatives and entrepreneurs as it relates to this new platform that everyone's talking about, this invitation-only platform that's only available on iPhone. How dare they only launch on iPhone? And I'm glad I have an iPhone. So I can use it and experience it. But I have some good friends that don't. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. So looking forward.
I use iPhones just to get on Clubhouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So let's welcome our guest. Barbara, are you there?
Hi. Hello there.
Hey, how you doing, Barbara?
I'm good. How about you guys?
We are good. We are good. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Well, my name is Barbara Donato, and I'm a writer and host of 2 great podcasts on the Pink Kangaroo Network. The newest is my Cryptocurrency Chronicles, where I'm helping people learn the ins and outs of cryptocurrency. And my other show is Tuesday's Book Club, which more than satisfies my love for reading. I'm also the mother of 4 beautiful children that keep me entertained every day.
Awesome.
Hello?
Thank you, Barbara.
Yes.
So, Barbara,
yes. About the Clubhouse.
So you're an avid user.
Yes, I am. It was my sister who invited me on. It was my sister that invited me into Clubhouse, and I've been pretty much using it almost every day for different things. But it's actually such a great app. I'm so excited that the creators were able to think of something like this. I think it's going to be great for entrepreneurs to use as a platform for their own brand and content.
So are you an addict?
You know what? Let me say this. There was, even though I've already read the book, The Alchemist, which is actually the very first book that we talked about on Tuesday's book club, and I found myself going into a room where someone was actually playing the audiobook of The Alchemist. And I love that book so much that I actually started listening to it, and I fell asleep in the room listening to this person play the audiobook of The Alchemist. So I'm going to say I'm a little addicted, just a little.
So as an entrepreneur, as a creative entrepreneur, what advice would you give someone else that wants to use the platform, really leverage it for their business? Like, what have you found useful about Clubhouse?
The biggest thing to me is there's so many people in the entrepreneurial space that are not only willing to network with others, but they're also, they are willing to share their secrets, share their experiences, share their knowledge. And it's been gold to me. It's been such a great opportunity for me to learn from so many different people who have been in the entrepreneurial space a lot longer than I have, that are just willing to drop these gems. I think it's awesome.
Okay. And then, so would there be a particular person that you would recommend over another that could benefit? Like a role or an industry? Like, what would you say?
Well, I will say this. When I first got on, I found myself in some of these real estate rooms, and because I had in the future, that's something that I want to do is just buy certain properties and stuff, and I learned a lot. So there's actually, I'm going to say there is pretty much a room at this point for everyone interested in just about anything. There's a room for real estate. There's a room for writing, a podcast room, a crypto. Oh my goodness. I don't even want to begin to tell you how much I learned about cryptocurrency. I learned so much because they're, again, experts that are talking about it and discussing it every day, all day. So there's a little of everything for anybody that really wants to learn, just about anything. There was acting in there. There's singing. Someone was playing the piano. There's like a whole room of piano players that critique each other. Yes, singers that sing and it's just, like I said, it's just insane the amount of knowledge you can learn on so many different topics.
What's one strategy that you would say for someone that a takeaway point as it relates to using Clubhouse? What's one thing that you would recommend? A hack or strategy that you've come across?
Try to be a speaker. I believe that if you can get yourself on stage so that you can share what you know about whatever it is that you're an expert in or whatever it is that you're doing, you know what I mean? Or whatever, definitely make yourself known. I've come to know a lot of people because they were either speakers or moderators, or some of them just asked really amazing questions. I followed some people because I was like, man, that is an awesome question. Like, where do they come from with that? I would never thought of that question. And then I go to their page and I see, and I read their bio and I follow them, just based off of a question. So for me, it's if you can get into the if you can get on the stage and, and just be vocal, I think that's the biggest thing for someone to first come in and just, and grow their platform on Clubhouse.
No, those are really great tips. And for our listeners, again, who aren't as familiar with Clubhouse, getting on stage, obviously this is a virtual platform, it just means that you are unmuted, your mic is unmuted, and you can speak. You can add an opinion, you can ask a question. As it relates to speaking, as Barbara mentioned, if you want to be a speaker, then you would create a room or you would with a group or another individual decide to start a room, which is a conversation really, where other people can join in to listen or contribute, and you are a speaker or host in that room or co-host in that room. And so if you are on the platform, and I know there's terms that for Clubhouse users very familiar, if you're just coming on, that's something to keep in mind. Also, Barbara mentioned a very important thing, which is your profile and or your bio. Within Clubhouse, everything on that profile page is searchable. So that's another tip, hack, strategy for those that are using it for business. And, or if you just want to connect with like-minded individuals, even emojis are searchable. So, be intentional in terms of the words you're using, the descriptors you're using. Be personal, whatever you think resonates with the person that you want to engage with or you want to follow you and or connect with you offline. So that's something to think about. That was really great, Barbara. Thank you for sharing that. Ryan, do you have any other questions for Barbara?
Yeah, it's kind of similar, but what do you really love about Clubhouse? What to you is your personal, I guess, what appeals to you personally about Clubhouse?
Thank you.
I like that people can go into rooms, and you know what? It's to be honest, because sometimes I am just getting out of bed or about to go to bed, or I'm making dinner, and I don't really want people to see me. How
yep.
Some people, Zoom calls. Exactly. I don't, but I do like the fact that you can go into these rooms and there's several people that can have a conversation. I think that's great. It's kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with, sitting on a stoop. I grew up in New York, and we would all just kind of hang out on a stoop, doing, playing double dutch, sitting with my cousin, sitting and doing my cousin's hair. And then people will kind of crowd around us, and we will just talk about different things that happen during the day or what we're doing. We talk about politics. We talk about different subjects. It kind of reminds me of that. It kind of reminds me of sitting on a stoop and just congregating and talking, or like if you're at work, you're going to lunch, you're sitting in the break room, and you're just having either work conversations or, you could talk about electronics in one place. I mean, it's just, that's the feel of it. It's very organic in a lot of the rooms where people just flow, and they are like-minded people. I just love that. And they can just talk about what they know and what they like and what, and what they've experienced.
Yeah, no, that reminds me of what Ryan and I were touching on earlier in regards to, yes, it's a great platform if you're very strategic from a business standpoint, but I absolutely seen it continue to grow, like you said, as a social and entertaining platform. Barbara, I want to thank you so much for joining us as a guest, and we really appreciate your wisdom and insight. For our listeners, check out Barbara, My Cryptocurrency Chronicles, and Tuesday's Book Club, two great podcasts that she hosts on the Pink Kangaroo Network. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. You're welcome, guys. And I'll still be listening.
Okay, great. Ryan, it's Q&A time. We have a call from a listener. Are you ready to take a question from a listener? All right, let's go. We have Dr. McGee.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
Hey, Dr. McGee, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just trying to learn a little bit about Clubhouse.
Yeah, it's been definitely a ride. I feel like I've only been using it for a little over a month, but I feel like it's been at least 6 months just based on the deep dive I've been doing from a strategic standpoint.
The 8-hour stay you spent on Nova, it ends up being 6 months quite quickly.
So, Dr. McGee, what question do you have, or what wisdom do you want to share with us about Clubhouse?
Well, the one thing that I wanted to know is because I'm getting ready to move my business more onto social media. I do academic advising, book editing, and public speaking. So I wanted to know, how can I use Clubhouse to really enhance some of the things that I'm doing?
Those are really really good question. Ryan, you want to take that?
Yeah, that's interesting because you have three very different things that you do that in many ways are kind of good on this platform, but are kind of good on other platforms. I could see Clubhouse being a great place to practice your public speaking from the standpoint of just getting comfortable speaking in front of a crowd. But more importantly, it's almost like a comedian who is, goes and tries out a bunch of jokes on like smaller venues to see what works. I think it'd be a great way to try out different styles of speaking, in a smaller group, maybe get some feedback, especially if that was the intention of the group, and really hone your speech that way. I think I've never thought about that. You brought it up, but I think that could be a super powerful way of practicing, but more importantly, honing your speech to make it perfect for wherever you're going. On top of, the typical, like we're doing, create a group for speakers and, share your advice, share your knowledge, share your experience. I think that's the obvious one, but I really kind of like the idea of using it as a tool to really enhance your speech through feedback and practice. I think that could be super cool. You said you edit and you're a advisor, right? Kind of
academic advisor, and I edit books and I do public speaking.
Obviously with Clubhouse, you could do the typical, educating people about what the edit book process is like, what it's really like to go through that process. Those to me were a little more difficult to really run what I would call fun, interesting, dynamic group. It could be done, but to me they'd be a little more informational based versus like your speaking thing. I think that could lead to a lot of conversation back and forth between you and whoever else is in that clubhouse.
I agree. Yeah, I was just going to add, in terms of the writing and editing, I think that you could listen in on certain rooms to get advice on possibly growing that niche of your business. There may be rooms that are like for writers that are looking to turn their information into a book, or how to market their book, or if you're an editor, maybe joining a room with other writers and having a question, going on stage and announcing yourself as an editor, so the writers in the room are meeting you, because which writer does not need an editor? So it would be like sharks. And so by just saying, hi, I'm an editor, here's some advice I'd like to give you, or here's a question that I have, and just letting people know that you exist and your service exists. So I would say joining rooms with writers in the room if you're looking for leads for your business, and or informational rooms, as Ryan said, if you're looking to learn. And I love the idea of using it as a platform to hone in on your public speaking skills. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely helps. The one thing that I forgot to mention is that currently I'm running a leadership group where I am growing new leaders. And so we're studying different books on leadership, and it's an international group. So I have people from, Germany, from Belgium, and, of course, folks from the United States that are, we meet once every 2 weeks to discuss leadership. But I'm thinking now that you're sharing about Clubhouse that this could also be an avenue for us to use and have a book study and have other people join in on that book study.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's the name of the group?
The name of the group is Lunch and Learn. So we meet during lunch hours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, awesome. Awesome. I think that's a great idea.
It's funny that she mentioned that, too, because one of the ideas I've had with Clubhouse, but I've never shared it with anybody, is, because it is free, especially if you're doing like a large group presentation like you're talking about, if you really don't want to deal with that visual component, why wouldn't you host it on Clubhouse as opposed to a bunch of other things, right? And just have all your members join it, and then if people pop in, it's fine. But it's a free platform to do, your education, your presentation, whatever. And I've always wondered. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because I always had that thought too. I just didn't know. And I guess you can create private groups too, can't you, where people can't pop in and out?
Yeah.
But it just seems like
you
good
can.
Platform, especially if I know like a lot of graduate school classes, topics like that, they're more conversation than they are presentation. And if that's your focus of your group, this is an amazing platform to facilitate conversation. And do it in a way that, even though there's pictures involved, people forget. And it's a really great way of having a conversation where people aren't judging you based on the way you look or, where you're from. And that to me just breaks down those walls of prejudice, breaks down those walls of stereotypes, of whatever, and allows for a really productive sharing of information, right? Sharing of energy, sharing of ideas. And, that's how you not only create change, but, change people's hearts and minds about other cultures, other races, other whatever, right? And that, to me, is one of the huge powers of Clubhouse, if done correctly.
Mm-hmm. I think we should be getting paid from Clubhouse for doing all this plugging.
I know.
Yeah.
Listen, Clubhouse, I'm just saying. Dr. McGee, how can our listeners find you if they're interested in your editing services, or if they're looking, or if you are looking for a service that they could provide to you as a writer? How can they connect with you?
I am on Facebook as Philip McGee, Marlene. They can look me up on Facebook. I am also on Instagram, and I am on Twitter. And they can also email me if I can drop my email for you. It's Marlene, M-A-R-L-E-N-E, McGee, M-A-G-E-E, @gmail.com. So you can email me. You can look me up on Facebook or Instagram or on Twitter. And soon to be on Clubhouse.
All right, soon to be on Clubhouse, y'all. So if you need any academic advising, book editing, definitely check out Marlene McGee. She's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and soon to be on Clubhouse. Thank you so much for your question, Dr. McGee. And we hope we helped answer, give you some good advice on Clubhouse. And I'll see you there for sure.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
All right, thank you. Take care. Ryan, we have another question from a listener. LaShawn is on the line. Hi, LaShawn.
Hey there.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. What do you want to know about Clubhouse?
So I want to first start off by telling you what I love about Clubhouse. I think it's such a unique platform because they're experts on every subject, kind of like what the other caller was saying, Barbara. I tuned in one day. I was just happened to be walking to the airport. I had my headphones on. I was like, let's check out what's on this Clubhouse. And someone was talking about, there was a CPA on there. And I had been trying to get in touch with some tax accounting type person to ask these questions. And I was able to talk to an actual CPA and ask really specific, pointed questions and get answers to some stuff that I really need to know. Another time I tuned in, there were a couple of lawyers on there. I think the room was called 5 Lawyers and a Mom. And I was able to ask questions that I would normally have to pay big money for, like expert information. So that's one thing that I love about Clubhouse, and being able to talk to people who know their stuff, people who can help me figure out my stuff. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And there was another unique room. I'm glad that you guys were talking about some of the different rooms there, but when you said the one about where you can just go in and listen to someone reading a book, like, that's so cool. Like, I think I would do that. And how Barbara said she fell asleep listening to the book. I want to go find that room. But my question is,
I'm waiting for the wave room that you do just listen to and go to bed. That's what I'm waiting for.
I have a blog that I've been doing for a couple of years, and I kind of let it go for a minute, but I'm going to pick it back up in another minute. But I've always wanted to have a podcast. And so I'm listening to the different, I'm joining the different rooms talking about podcasts. I'm learning so much. But when do you think, how do you know when you're ready? Like, when am I ready I would love to start a room in Clubhouse, but I'm not a CPA. Like, I don't have the technical background and technical knowledge, how will I know when I'm ready to have a room?
Yeah, I would say, if you are just testing it out, just do a private room and get comfortable with the features and invite like 2 or 3 friends. And the more you do that, the easier it is to open a public room. I think you can do it whenever. And the more often you do it, the more often people see your room, and it will grow over time. So don't get frustrated if there's only a few people in initially. Just be consistent. And you can even tell people in your description, it's weekly, it's at this time, it's for an hour. And then over time, it will grow. So I think for Clubhouse, it's consistency. And then just taking the plunge, just do it. Like, don't wait, just do it. Like, what do you have to lose? There's no penalty. You're not getting paid. And, you could just do it with your friends initially to get warmed up. So I hope that helps.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? If you have any other questions, feel free to DM us as well. So you could check me out on Instagram, or you can directly go to our show page and email and DM us, and we'll be happy to answer any more questions because we're getting close to wrapping up the show.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Ryan, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is there one quick thing you want to say?
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, like, as you know, like, what I would say, like, there's no time, like, the answer to the question is, whenever it comes to starting something, usually now is the best answer. And as far as if you're starting out not feeling confident in your level of expertise, what that is to me is then title your group to where you're not presenting yourself as an expert, and that way you can grow with the group, right? So maybe you start a group for beginners, and you talk to beginners, and as your knowledge grows, through your continual learning, growing, and evolving, then the title of your group changes because you now know more, and your group grows. So,
that's great advice.
That's my thing. It's start now, and then start at what level you feel comfortable with as far as what you call yourself, and then, you will grow as your practice grows and as your knowledge grows.
Yeah, really, really good advice. Thank you so much, LaShawn. Definitely check us out next week. And if you want to continue the conversation on our show next week, we can do that too. So definitely call in next week. Thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Unleash Your Supernova. We hope you got some great tips to start releasing, unlocking, tapping into your inner brilliance. Definitely download and subscribe to the podcast, Unleash Your Supernova, and tune in next week for another live show with me and Ryan. Thank you. Bye.
Everybody, have a great week.